With the Crucible of Champions rules, the Anvil of Apotheosis comes to 40k from Age of Sigmar. Warhammer Fantasy doesn't need it, as there are so many magical items and abilities and upgrades and mounts that you can customize your character a lot already, and definitely make them overpowered. Not so in 40k, where the weapon options are slimmed down based on what bits come with the current model. Like if there's an Abominant, well, she isn't known as Little Hammer Lady, or Twin Hammer Lady, or Big Sword Lady. I mean, imagine. Space Marine captains could have combi weapons at the start of the edition, but not now. That is something simple that previous models did have. And we can have them back for a points cost, sort of. There's customization. You are rebuilding a datasheet from the ground up, so the abilities of the character will be different to a Space Marine captain. They won't necessarily have the every battle round you can use a stratagem for 0 command points, or 1 fewer command point. But they can. This is called Crucible Champions, and it is in the Maelstrom expansion. That's a good place to have expansions, where it's a campaign book, but it's not Crusade, and these are rules that you can use in a lot of places. We'll get to where and when you can use the rules. But you can make your own specialized characters. You can make the Red Terror and other missing characters. Maybe a Chimera officer? What about models that aren't around anymore? Like Lord Kaldar Drago of the Grey Knights, or the Carcharodon Chapter Master who has Twin Lightning Claws, Tyberos of the Red Wake. Maybe you can have a Twin Lightning Claws on a Space Marine Captain Terminator type person like at the start of the edition, but those weapon options are now gone. Can we use these rules to make a good working Genestealer Cult Magos that has a powerful psychic attack? And we have a Sisters Living Saint, a Gravis Lieutenant, a Paragon Warsuit Palatine, a Centurion suit character. Well, let's not get silly. There's no Imperial Knights customization. Between the massive variety of knights with weapons you can already have, that's roughly covered already. Mostly. And further specializations you have with enhancements. There's already big limits on the Crucible of Champions expansion. Many of the basic archetypes are missing. There is no Chaos Cultist leader in the Chaos Space Marines, and I don't know why not. But let's see which ones we can make. And while Games Workshop could expand this further in the future with further archetypes, there's a worry that this will not last into 11th edition. Kit bashing a model is fun, and you can make a cool model, but don't assume that it will still have valid rules even under this expansion in 11th edition. If the rules are very similar in 11th edition, like the same base rules, the same stats, the same keywords like precision and lethal hits, then yeah, it should be still okay. 8th edition was compatible with 9th edition for that reason, and the expansions carried over. We'll have to see what happens with 11th edition. Some of the weapons cost 5 points, just a flat 5 points. Is Games Workshop preparing us for points per weapon again, like we had in 9th edition? There has been talk of that for over a year, and that is when the 11th edition rules would have been sorted out. Okay, here's how the Crucible of Champions works. First of all, you pick an archetype, that is, a stat line. It gives you a base set of units that you can join, points value, and 1 special ability. These are going to be very familiar special abilities. Then you can pick a specialism. This may change the kind of units you can join. It can also change your keywords, like you might gain the Psychic keyword. You might lose the Lone Operative keyword. And that could be an easier way for Games Workshop to make Gravis or Phobos Lieutenants from one datasheet next edition, but they probably won't. Easier to have it listed out which units you can join, and say this model is this character with this stat line, and they're in this armor. You can skip the specialism part if you want and just have the basic version. So if you want someone that can lead a tactical squad, you don't need to mess with having a specialism. Then you add an ability. That's like one of the 2 special rules on a unit. So like the Space Marine Lieutenant has the ability to fall back and shoot and charge with their unit, and also they give lethal hits to their unit. The equivalent of one of those was already in the archetype, the second one you pick from a list. There are common ones that you see from other characters in your faction. So things like, unit has +1 to wound, having lethal hits on a unit, things like that. It lets you make a specialized Space Marine Captain, Chaplain, or Librarian. And it is annoying to me that the Tactical Precision rule gives lethal hits, not precision. Like the Eldar Eldritch Raiders enhancement is said to cause devastating wounds, but it gives the Lance ability, not devastating wounds. Use synonyms, Games Workshop, please. Synonyms that are not keywords. And anyway, I think lethal hits should be called precision, as you hit weak points of the enemy, as lethal injuries kill people. And precision should be called sniper or assassin. After picking that, you then pick your weapons. There's a maximum of each kind, like you can have up to 2 pistols, up to 2 melee weapons, up to 1 ranged weapon, that's common. You have to pick 1 melee weapon, you can't go without. And after picking one other thing, any weapon you pick after that costs 5 points each. So you can't quite go, oh, I have so many guns. Can I have 5 sniper rifles for 20 points extra? No, you can't. But you could have 2 melee weapons, 1 ranged weapon and 2 pistols, and that would cost 15 extra points. And when you're picking these weapons, you want to go with something that's going to be represented on the model, but you also want to go for the obviously best one. The model has to be WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Most 40k models don't necessarily follow that, but here you have to get close to what the character is. If it can fly and move 12 inches, then a jump pack or wings should be on the model. Unless you want to claim they move by teleportation, but the point is your opponent should be able to see what the character can do by looking at them. They have a big hammer, I expect them to have a good melee profile, not that they also have a las cannon. Finally, you can have up to 3 custom characters like this in your army, but none of them can be given enhancements. You can only be specialized in one way. My group might ignore that for Crusade. So let's have a go at making some of the characters I suggested at the start of this video. What about the Red Terror? It's been a while, but a lot of people have the model. So start with the Node Organism archetype. Then we need a specialism, so either Burrowing Claws or the Vanguard Organism specialism. To represent its melee attacks that we can see on the model, Ravener Claws and Talons seems about right. It's good to see that the Tyranids can in some way customize their units again, like in good old 3rd edition, that codex. And with the Vanguard keyword, this is a character that could join the Genestealer Cult in the final day. We can't make a Chimera officer, the only option is a Sentinel officer. Otherwise use the Imperial Guard Codex, Rogel Dawn or Lehman Russ battle tank commanders. But I think you can make a pretty good Grey Knight Master Drago. Have a Champion of Titan archetype, add Terminator armor, and some special weapons of your choice that you think best fits him, and that can work. That can work. A Space Marine Chapter Master or Captain in Terminator armor with Lightning Claws can work. Champion of the Chapter archetype, that gives you Exemplary Warrior. When this model makes an attack, you can reroll the wound rolls. It's going to be awkward as we're adding Lightning Claws, which also gives you the same ability, but never mind. That's quite a unique ability. Add on to that Terminator armor, which is 15 more points. Then add Rites of Battle, which is the Captain ability, so you can use a stratagem. Well, it says target the unit with a stratagem for 0 command points, but we know from the balance patch that it means subtract 1 from the cost of the command points. Then add Twin Lightning Claws and maybe an over-the-shoulder Forge Bolter. Or skip ranged weapons entirely. Of course, that's using the Crucible of Champions to make something that doesn't already exist in 40k. At least not as far as the current rules are concerned. But I suppose you can use this to make OP things. You can have a Librarian that gives the unit sustained hits, then give them tactical precision for lethal hits, now you have sustained and lethal hits, and you'll get full rerolls to hit if you are leading a Deathwatch veteran squad, or you attack the Oath of Moment target. That's very good for 70 points. And they can still have Smite, or they can have a combi weapon, but not both, even though that's what the Terminator Librarian comes with. You're limited to 1 ranged weapon. But rather than having a 4 attack force weapon, why not have a 6 attack mastercrafted power weapon with AP -2 and damage 2? Or a Thunder Hammer with even more strength and AP than the force weapon that they should be wielding. And that's not the most broken thing, that's just something I could find very quickly. You'll have to tell me in the comments what you have, either as a fun character you wanted to make, or the most overpowered thing you think is possible with these rules that have leaked onto the internet. And we have a Gravis Lieutenant? Yeah, kind of. Champion of the Chapter, the Tactical Precision ability so you have lethal hits in the unit, and have them equipped with Mark 10 Gravis armor. That stops them being able to lead Tacticus and Tactical Squad units, and instead they lead Gravis units. Except ones that can fly. And instead you could have the heavy jump pack and the Mark 10 Gravis armor, and then you could lead the ones that can fly. Have a damage 3 mastercrafted heavy bolt rifle. And also a Thunder Hammer, since we're able to re-roll the wound rolls, why not? Get more devastating wounds. What about a Centurion suit character? No, definitely not. And all was right with the world. Okay, what about the Genestealer Cult? Can we make a Genestealer Cult Magos that has a decent psychic attack? I think we can. Start with the 70-point Voice of the Patriarch, which has a psychic ability built in that gives the unit lethal hits. Only on ranged weapons. That's a good start. We'll skip the specialism, but for an ability, we could still have the Magus' Spiritual Leader ability that lets you undo Battle Shock. And then for the weapons, have the Psionic Cascade and the Force Stave. It is different to a Benefactus. With 4 wounds, you won't explode in 1 failed hazardous test. So that's good for 70 points. I think better than a Benefactus, but it's not the best ever. The Cult Insurrectionist gives the unit they're leading full rerolls to hit. This was obviously the Primus's archetype, but before they changed the rule in September 2025 to be +1 to hit for the unit instead of full rerolls to hit. So there we know that this book was written at least before September 2025. Oh well, I guess we have to cope with full rerolls to hit. They could be a Shepherd of the Blessed and lead Aberrants. Add in Twisted Science for lethal hits. Now you have a very nasty Aberrant unit. That could work well in the Biosanctic Brood Surge. You won't be able to infiltrate with them because you cannot give the character an enhancement. Crucible characters can't have enhancements. But this character could have their own mining laser, and a heavy mining tool, and a toxin claw injector. That means they'll be okay at fighting infantry with an anti-infantry weapon, and a heavy mining tool for anti-vehicle, as well as maybe the mining laser will hit sometime. If you can model it, you can make it. If you wanted a Jackal Alphas, but for them to actually be a sniper and be a lone operative, have the Cult Gorilla. They have the lone operative rule. Then for a specialism, give them a dirt cycle. They lose infiltrate and deep strike, but they gain scout, and they keep their lone operative ability. And for their sniper rifle, this Cult Sniper Rifle is the better Cult Sniper Rifle. It's the one that the Sanctus has rather than the Jackal Alphas. So it's strength 7, still damage 3, anti-psyker 2+. Or you could give them a mining laser. If the Space Marine Eliminators can have las fusils and still be considered stealthy snipers, I don't see why we can't. Then we move on to the Battle Sisters. So can we have a Sisters Living Saint? Well, you could have an Inspiring Devotee. They have the Sacred Devotions ability, which means any miracle dice used on the unit becomes a 4. Well, what if I wanted to have a 5 or a 6? Too bad, it's a 4. So let's have the Militant Commander instead. The Militant Commander is like a Canoness. You can have a jump pack, so that could represent our wings. So far we are close to Saintliness, or another Canoness with a jump pack. You could add on the Shield of the Righteous ability, which gives models in the unit a 4+ invulnerable save. That's somewhat saintly. Then for the weapons, a Brazier of Holy Fire and a Blessed Blade. It still feels more like a Canoness than a Saint, but that could work. What about a Paragon Warsuit Palatine? Why, yes, we absolutely can. Have a Reliquant Knight archetype. Their ability lets you reroll advance and charge rolls. Very good. And it's a Paragon Warsuit profile, toughness 7, 2+ save, 4+ invulnerable save, 4 wounds. And you kit them out with almost the same weapons as a Paragon Warsuit. You can have a multi-melter, but you couldn't then also have Paragon grenade launchers because it is up to 1 ranged weapon, not including pistols. And for melee weapons, you can have the Paragon War Mace or the Paragon War Blade. It's another character that isn't Morven Val that can lead Paragon units. That's what we want. You could instead join Mortifiers, not Penitent Engines, just Mortifiers. That's the Absolver of Sin specialism. You don't get the Penitent keyword, and as the Penitent host mostly works on Penitent models over Penitent units, there is a difference between the two. This character won't get the detachment bonuses, so their Mortifiers would be moving faster than them, and you'd still have to stay in unit coherency. But if you wanted your Mortifiers in combat, you can re-roll the charge rolls. And one of the stratagems which you can use on the unit lets you advance and charge. Now you can do so re-rolling the advance roll and the charge roll. The problem then is you're not able to shoot. And the Mortifier's heavy bolters are very good at shooting. It's an awkward option, but I could see it working. And finally, the Imperial Agents. They have an enthroned agent, which is Karamazov. It's Inquisitor Karamazov. The Deathwatch agent is like an apothecary. You can bring back a model in the unit in each of your command phase. But with a specialism, the Long Vigil, your Deathwatch agent stops being Imperial Agents and becomes Adepta Sororitas Deathwatch. Those become their new faction keywords, so they're not locked into Imperial Agents. And the Martial Agent could be an Inquisitor or Rogue Trader, or a Judge, or an Assassin, depending on the specialisms and the weapon you pick. Now, these rules are unlikely to appear as a download on Warhammer Community. I think you'll have to buy the Maelstrom book to get these. But while they're available for pre-order this weekend, and the book will come out on the 28th of February, when you're buying it, please use my affiliate links linked in the description. They give you discounts compared to going through Games Workshop. So let's finish up by talking a bit more about how these units work and where the characters can be used. It's easy for Games Workshop to expand on this with more base archetypes in a future expansion. Have a specialized Living Saint. Have a character whose job is to lead penitent units. Have a Ministorum Priest. Have a Chaos Cultist champion. These could be done in another add-on. Now, these rules are not for tournaments or matched play, except it sort of is match play. Match play, if you think of match play as the basic standard way to play, that's fine. It is for match play. The app is designed for tournament play, so these rules won't be in the app. You can't follow the tournament base size guide, and the rules on base size are a bit vague for this. It's a suitably sized base, so it shouldn't be smaller than the base of the model that you're using as the kit bash model. So if you were using a Space Marine Apothecary, they come on a 40mm base. You can't have it smaller than that, but you could have it one size bigger. That would be 50mm. And both players need to agree. That's just like a lot of things. You need to talk to your opponent before the game to check what kind of rules you're using for the terrain. Is this a ruin? Is it a barricade? Can you see through these windows, or if pretending the windows don't exist? You would have to ask if you can use the Crucible of Champions beforehand, or make two lists, one with customized characters and one without, and depending on what your opponent says, that determines which list you use. There's some definitely crazy things available. I do like the customized Space Marine Dreadnought. Now, from the really big, tall, long-leggy Dreadnought, you can mix and match and have, like the Dreadnought, the proper boxy Castaferum Dreadnought, have a twin las cannon but also have a power fist and a heavy flamer. It reminds me of the vehicle design rules from 3rd edition. You could make some crazy units as long as you could show which weapons were there on the model. It's a good idea. It was quickly abused, and there were attempts to patch it in the White Dwarf magazines to no avail, and eventually it was scrapped. Games Workshop has done custom characters kind of like this before in 8th edition, and it didn't massively take off. There was not a lot of internet talk about it. There's been a lot more success in Age of Sigmar, and those rules have been reprinted edition after edition. The 40k version didn't make it to 9th edition, and was basically replaced with Crusade rules. So these rules are currently compatible with Crusade. I don't see why they wouldn't be. You're just adding another character to your roster. But will Crusade continue into next edition? It started in 9th edition, it's continued into 10th edition, but the 500 Worlds book and this Maelstrom book are not Crusade books, but they are campaign books. Perhaps we've just had enough Crusade books by now for this edition. If you include 500 Worlds and Maelstrom, that matches the 6 Crusade/narrative books we had in 9th edition. But why would it be consistent with previous edition? There's no particular reason we can take one data point and extrapolate a second accurate data point. And we know that an Eye of Terror campaign is coming with more Iron Warrior things, Iron Warriors themed, Chaos Space Marines like new Mutilators and a new Defiler. That will be probably the last expansion to come before Games Workshop starts talking about 11th edition, doing little reveals for 11th edition, and we'll get one final balance patch around March, and then it'll be straight into the next edition. Oh my, it feels like it's been a very short edition, but also incredibly long. There's a lot of things could happen in 11th edition, and I will see you there. Let me know in the comments what kind of character you're going to make, and have a great day of 40k.